Chapter 1, Prequel Chapter 1, Remembering.
A sudden flash of lightning and a resounding thunderclap jolted Link awake, immediately followed by the rhythm of heavy rain drumming against the window above his bed.
Although the thunder was unwelcome, the soothing pitter-patter of raindrops brought a sense of tranquility.
Ever since he was a child, Link had cherished the sounds of water, be it the majestic roar of a waterfall or the gentle patter of rain against a stable rooftop. As he glanced up at the window, he could see the first light of dawn beginning to seep into the sky. Too early to get up, Link muttered to himself. So, he took a deep breath, rolled over in his bed, and closed his eyes again, not to sleep but to think. Today held particular significance for him as he had an important meeting scheduled later that morning with Dr. Pura at the nearby Hadino Ancient Tech Lab. And despite the soothing sound of the rain, he didn't think he could fall back asleep, he had too much on his mind. So, Link lay there, his thoughts wandering. For one thing, he needed to mentally prepare himself for the upcoming encounter. Dr. Pura was a brilliant but eccentric Sheikah scientist whose actions were often unpredictable. Even those who knew her best, like her younger sister Impa or her research colleague Dr. Rabi, were frequently caught off guard by her surprises. What initially sparked the thoughts he wished to discuss with Dr. Pura? His curiosity was piqued after reading one of the 10 Zora monuments dispersed throughout the land surrounding Zora's domain. This particular monument was located in the Zodaban Highlands, just a short distance northwest of where the imposing divine beast Va-Ruta stood sentinel atop a plateau. He recalled it happened one sunny afternoon while hiking with his old Big Bad Baz Brigade friend Riven.
Phew!
Made it, said Riven as he struggled to catch his breath.
Why couldn't you choose swimming instead of hiking today, Link?
Because I wanted to visit this monument, laughed Link.
I'm grateful for your company, Riven. But things are safer now, and I can manage on my own. You didn't have to come with me. Tell that to King Dorphan, laughed Riven.
All of us guards have standing orders to report if you're seen. And Captain Baz has standing orders to assign someone to look after you. King Dorphan thinks of you as a member of the family, Link.
And I volunteered to go when Baz asked for one.
I'm happy to spend time with my old friend, even if he's forgotten all we did as kids.
Thanks, Riven, and I didn't mean to sound ungrateful.
I'm glad you're here, and your company certainly makes the trip more cheerful. King Dorphan has been wonderful to me, treating me like family, Link agreed, nodding. But now that we're here, let's read the monument.
They both turned to read the inscription concerning the famous Zora Princess Ruto.
History of the Zora, Part 5.
The Sage Princess Ruto.
As told by King Dorphan.
Long, long ago,
in a past more distant than even the great calamity or the creation of the divine beast, Va-Ruta,
there was a Zora princess named Ruto.
We know that she was an attendant to the Zora patron deity and that she was a fair and lively girl, beloved to all. Around that same time, an evil man with designs on ruling the world appeared, bringing disaster upon Zora's domain. It is said that Ruto then awoke as a sage, facing this foe alongside the princess of Hyrule and the hero of legend. Her achievements are remembered not only by the Zora, they are also forever etched into the history of Hyrule. The divine beast Va-Ruta, built ages later to face off against Calamity Ganon, was named in honor of Ruto. That the Zora princess, my sweet daughter Mipha, was chosen to pilot Ruta is surely the work of fate.
Somehow, fate was all too cruel, wasn't it? Link muttered after he finished reading.
Yes, it was, said Riven quietly.
Maybe I should learn more about Princess Ruto, said Link after another moment. Do you know any more about her?
Only a little more, what we learned in class, said Riven.
Ironically, it is said that Princess Ruto developed feelings for the Hylian hero of the time and gave him the long-lost Zora Sapphire as an engagement gift.
But perhaps the Hyrule Castle Library has more information.
Yes, good thought.
And that was what Mipha was referring to in her diary when she wrote, according to the old legend, long ago a Zora princess fell in love with a Hylian swordsman. Perhaps there is hope.
This will be a rare occasion that Link is not accompanying the princess.
We should have some time to ourselves.
Oh, I have an idea. At sunset, I shall ride upon Ruta with Link.
Zora, princess of the past, please lend me your courage.
You memorized Mipha's diary?
King Dorfan gave me permission, and I've read it so many times I know it by heart, Link admitted.
But not only hers. I've also read and reread the other champions' diaries too. They gave me some insight into what they were thinking and doing back then.
And my empty mind certainly has plenty of room to fill in.
I guess that's true, laughed Riven. Anyway, if you're rested, we can head back. I don't want to keep you away from your family for too long. How's your daughter, Dunma?
She's fine and enjoys following in her family's wake and serving as a guard, said Riven. By the way, whenever your name comes up, she jokes about when you two first met, how you asked if she was a female and how old she was.
But I remind her that your memory was lost back then, and you didn't recall anything about Zora's.
I blush to think how silly I must have sounded to her, laughed Link. I hope she's not upset at me.
No, not at all.
She understands, said Riven.
She just thinks it was amusing. Anyway, I'm ready to hike back.
And so, upon his next visit to Hyrule Castle, Link consulted what information was available in the restored castle library. There, the story became even more interesting, and started giving him ideas. The Link of that period was referred to as the Hero of Time, and he was called that because he traveled back and forth in time for 7 years.
He and the sages battled Ganondorf in his original timeline and finally destroyed him. But that wasn't the end of the story. Link and Zelda's actions afterward created another timeline.
And in that timeline, the hero's knowledge enabled him to warn the young Princess Zelda of Ganondorf's treachery. Ganondorf was caught before he could accomplish his evil intent. He was arrested, imprisoned, and when he could not be executed, he was banished to the Twilight Realm. He eventually returned to cause havoc, as told in the stories about the hero of Twilight.
But that wasn't the point.
The point was that the Link of that era had changed things for the better for a Hyrule timeline through time travel.
The obvious question was, could it be done again?
Of course, there was still a Temple of Time, but could anyone make it serve its original purpose?
Could he go back in time and prevent Ganon's destruction just like the Hero of Time had?
The only one who might know about such things was Dr. Pura, which led to Link making an appointment with her later this morning. In the 2 years since Calamity Ganon's defeat, much had changed. For one thing, monsters were now a rarity, with the few remaining taking refuge in remote corners of Hyrule. With the cessation of blood moons reviving the terrible creatures, their elimination became a feasible task, one of the first undertakings.
People now traveled without fear. Although the Yiga clan could still stir up trouble, Ganon's fall had apparently dampened their spirits.
They had retreated into the shadows, at least for the time being.
Rebuilding Hyrule remained the primary focus. However, Link couldn't help but smile at the success of Bolsone construction. The company was thriving, with numerous workers and many projects. But thankfully, there were other construction companies now to give them a healthy dose of competition. Much to his relief, they no longer had the time to loiter around his house. Speaking of his house, Link had chosen to live in the serene farming community of Hateno Village to escape the constant activity surrounding Hyrule Castle. Here, people gave him space, and his cozy hillside home provided a sanctuary for relaxation and reflection when he wasn't journeying. Within these walls, he attempted to chronicle everything he could recall in a journal he was keeping, a task more challenging than it seemed, given his nearly complete memory loss. His mind was blank when he emerged from the Shrine of Resurrection just over 2 years prior. Initially, he spent weeks recovering fragments of memories from the images preserved in Zelda's Sheikah slate. However, these only captured moments shared with Zelda.
Next, he regained some additional memories by visiting major villages in Hyrule and conversing with their inhabitants. These interactions helped him remember a little about Urbosa, Revali, Derek, and Mipha, his fellow champions. And that traveling bard, Cass, had told him tales of the times Zelda recruited each of the champions, which helped him see more of their personality. Sometime later, Cass found that group picture Mipha requested at Hyrule Castle, and it triggered a memory of that occasion. Thanks to taking notes in his journal, he had sorted out all those memories and put them in order of their occurrence. And he realized the last memory he had of all of them together was that fateful moment by the east gate of Lanero Road when Ganon attacked, and each of the champions raced back to their divine beast. They had placed their faith in ancient technology from 10 millennia past, only for Ganon to outwit them all. After that, he never saw the champions again, save as spirits. And right after Zelda and his triumph over Calamity Ganon, the 4 champion spirits departed Hyrule, their mission fulfilled. It was then he lost their unique abilities. Urbosa's fury, Derek's protection, Rivali's gale, and Mipha's grace had all vanished, leaving him with a sense of sorrow. Those powers had made him feel like they were still by his side. Still, he did have a few things to remind him of his fellow champions. Displayed on the surrounding walls were the rewards given to him by village leaders for liberating the divine beasts. There was Rivali's Great Eagle Bow, Derek's Boulder Breaker, Urbosa's Scimitar of the Seven and Daybreaker Shield, and most precious of all, Mipha's Lightscale Trident. At least he had those keepsakes to remember them by, tangible items they had once touched in life. And he had that one image of them all, though their expressions were not what you might expect.
Hanging on his wall was the group picture of Zelda, the champions, and himself that was taken by Pyrrha just after the champions' inauguration ceremony with King Rome.
Mipha had suggested the photo, and he was grateful she had. He remembered Mipha's endearing attempt to look her best for the picture, sidling closer to him and taking deep breaths. Then, the jovial Derek had brought them all together with a giant squeeze. They all laughed afterward. Well, except for Rivali, who was annoyed his dignified pose had been ruined and asked when Derek would finally grow up.
Anyway, Link occasionally looked at the picture to remember them, but it evoked bittersweet emotions.
That moment of happiness and unity had been all too fleeting. Now, Zelda was the only one left, the others were gone. But Link knew very well that his life extended beyond the scarce memories reclaimed from the Sheikah Slate and chance encounters. After fulfilling his duty to Hyrule, he yearned to understand more about himself and the significant individuals in his life. Even upon awakening from the shrine and embarking on his quest to save Hyrule, there were hints of other crucial connections, people and places that must have held significant meaning for him.
Zora's domain proved to be the most enlightening source of information. Numerous residents remembered Link from over a century ago.
While some older individuals at first harbored resentment, blaming him for past tragedies, others recognized him as a cherished friend and childhood companion.
Conversations revealed that he must have spent considerable time there.
As he spoke with King Dorphan and Prince Sidon, it became apparent that someone very special to him had lived in Zora's domain, and she was the reason for his frequent visits.
Link discovered that Princess Mipha was more than just a fellow champion.
She had been a friend since childhood, caring for him and healing his wounds with her magic. As they grew older, she fell in love with him and crafted an exquisite set of Zora armor, anticipating their marriage. At first, he could scarcely remember Mipha or his feelings for her. His initial memory of her, triggered by her statue, was a sun-drenched afternoon atop Divine Beast Varuta, where she tended to an injury on his arm and vowed to care for him. Rising from his bed, Link approached the group picture and focused on Mipha's image, thinking of her at that moment. Although it wasn't the most flattering picture, it was all he had. He decided to prepare a vegetable omelette for breakfast and soon found himself eating at his modest dining room table.
Although he cherished his cozy home, Link also enjoyed traveling.
He would sometimes visit Impa at Kakariko Village, appreciating their conversations and her stories from the past.
Impa had been an invaluable ally and guide when he awoke from the Shrine of Resurrection without his memory.
She was among the few living Sheikah who remembered him before Calamity Ganon's attack, and she had even preserved his champion tunic for a century. Whenever he visited, Impa greeted him warmly, inquiring about his well-being and the knowledge he gained during his travels.
They would occasionally share tea.
And though aging, her mind remained sharp. However, she didn't entirely support his attempts to remember his past. Instead, she would shake her head in disappointment, urging him to move forward and leave the past behind. "When you're as old as I am, Link, you can dwell on your past," scolded Impa as she slapped her hand against her thigh. "A young man like you should be thinking of his future." Impa's granddaughter, Paya, still lived with her and was consistently nervous around Link. Even with his limited understanding of women's emotions, he could tell she harbored feelings for him. Impa was undoubtedly aware of this, and he wondered if her insistence on moving on hinted at her desire for him to form a bond with Paya. Paya was a genuinely kind-hearted and devout person whom he liked and respected. Under different circumstances, he would gladly get to know her better. However, he wasn't ready for a relationship, and Paya's discomfort around him was one reason he limited his visits to Impa. Above all, he enjoyed spending time in Zora's domain, conversing with King Dorfan, Prince Sidon, and others who remembered Mipha and him from over a century ago. Those discussions aided his recollection or at least helped him learn more about the times they had shared.
He wore the Zora armor almost constantly now.
It suited him well, ensuring he maintained his physical fitness.
Moreover, swimming up waterfalls often expedited his journeys.
He still possessed other armor and his blue champion's tunic, which he reserved for the rare instances he attended meetings at Hyrule Castle.
Her Majesty Zelda had become the Queen of Hyrule, of course.
Her coronation was a magnificent event, with crowds cheering, overjoyed to witness Hyrule under new leadership after a century of devastation. At 17 years old, she was young to be crowned ruler, but she embodied hope for a long-suffering populace astonished to see her alive at all. Her survival was deemed miraculous, a sign that the goddess blessed her and would bless her reign. Link had attended the ceremony, naturally, and even held a distinguished position in the entourage. However, shortly after, he began to feel less needed.
Zelda was now fully protected by the re-established royal guards, and there were far fewer threats to her safety. Additionally, Zelda's duties kept her occupied, and he hesitated to intrude.
A few months after the coronation, he requested a private meeting with her, a meeting he remembered vividly. Link was escorted into a private reception room at Hyrule Castle. After a brief wait, Zelda entered, greeting him with her lovely smile.
He promptly knelt on one knee. "Your Majesty, thank you for seeing me."
"I know how busy you are," said Link.
"Link, I'm never too busy to see you. I would hope you knew that by now.
And, as I've told you before, when we're alone together, please call me Zelda.
I might start fining you a rupee each time you forget."
"Of course,
Zelda," Link chuckled as he stood up.
"How are you, Link?" asked Zelda.
"You look well. You know I'm always happy to see you."
"I'm fine, Zelda, still traveling a lot," Link replied.
"And I enjoy seeing you too.
You look wonderful. Everyone I meet speaks highly of your capabilities as a ruler."
"I wonder if they sing my praises to you because they know we're friends?" Zelda laughed. "But I appreciate the compliment. What did you want to see me about?"
"This is difficult for me to say, Zelda, but I need to say it. I think it would be best for me to leave Hyrule Castle and focus on restoring my memory. I've made some progress here and there, but to delve deeper, I need to go out more and meet with the few people who remember me while they still can. Also, I'm not sure I'm needed here. Our task with Calamity Ganon is thankfully over, and you're well protected now. Of course, if you grant me leave, I'll miss the people I've come to know here." "And I'll miss you most of all, Zelda," said Link. He articulated this more eloquently than usual, having practiced beforehand. He nervously observed Zelda's reaction. Zelda smiled tenderly, though her voice was tinged with sadness. "I'll be very sorry to see you go if that's your wish. Knowing you were here if I needed a friend or wanted to reminisce about my father and others was comforting. I admit my duties as queen have occupied me, and we haven't had as much time together as I would have liked. I wish it were different. But I understand your desire to recover your past.
"And I think I know the person you want to remember most," said Zelda. Link blushed as they both knew she meant Mipha.
"So, not without sorrow, I'll grant your request and relieve you, for now, of your duties here. Please take as much time as you need to recover your memories. But, Link, I hope you know you'll always hold a special place in my heart, and you're welcome to return here whenever you wish."
"And I hope you will do so frequently." "Thank you for being so understanding, Zelda," Link said.
"You know, if I may be so bold, how special you are to me as well, and I'll always treasure our time together." With that, he bowed to take his leave, but Zelda stepped forward, stopping him and embracing him with a hug, which he reciprocated. Then, he closed his eyes, fighting back tears as they held each other. "Oh, Link, I'll miss you so much," said Zelda. "Please remember, I am your good friend. I wish you success in seeking your memories. But, as a friend, I would also like to see you happy. I hope you can move on with your life. I can imagine how painful your loss is. I, too, have experienced painful losses. But we cannot live forever in the past, Link. I would be happy to see you visit often and let me know how you are. In fact, I think I will make that a royal decree that you do." Zelda teased him as they separated from their embrace. "Yes, I will gladly honor your royal decree," laughed Link. "And thank you, Zelda." Then he bowed and left the room. That meeting had taken place almost 2 years ago. He visited Zelda at least once a month as promised and enjoyed seeing her. She always welcomed him warmly and set aside an hour or more of her busy schedule for him. He shared his experiences from his travels around the kingdom, and she discussed her plans for Hyrule's reconstruction. Zelda held a special place in his heart. Most of the life he could remember was the time they spent together. She had transformed from the 16-year-old girl her father had tasked him with protecting into a capable ruler. And yes, she was right. If the plan he would discuss with Dr. Pura couldn't work, he would need to move on from the past. As he cleaned up, he recalled the times he had visited the divine beasts after appeasing them and shortly before Ganon's defeat. At each divine beast, he entered a virtual world where he could hone his fighting skills by battling once again the terrible blight creatures Ganon had created. It was invaluable training for his ultimate battle. And it also allowed him to hear the champion's spirits a few more times. Mipha's voice, lamenting his inability to remember their time together and that she would never forget, made him choke up each time he thought of it. It was so cruel to lose someone who loved you so deeply. Despite everyone urging him to move on with his life, for better or worse, he had achieved some success recalling his past life. And given what he had learned about Mipha, he concentrated on Zora's domain, seeking places to trigger a recollection. Of course, it seldom worked, but sometimes it did. And when it did, it only reinforced his need to learn more about his time with Mipha. He still remembered just a little, but much more than before. Now he could recall a time they sat together watching a sunset over the water. They had swum together earlier and were drying off, chatting about what each was doing. Then that beautiful sunset happened, and they sat quietly, sharing the moment. Or another time, they were sitting with their feet dangling in a pool of water covered with lily pads and laughing when the occasional frog would jump out and startle them. Mipha looked so happy being with him, and he remembered how content and at ease he felt with her. As he recovered more memories, he also rediscovered more feelings. He realized he was in love with Mipha and wished he could be with her. They had been close friends since childhood, but their relationship grew into something much more as they matured. Now it was all gone. But he was hopeful that there might be something he could do about it. Zelda and Impa had often told him that he should move on with his life. But moving on with his life was precisely the problem. What was his life now? He had fulfilled his duty to Zelda and Hyrule as the hero. Zelda now had a kingdom to govern, but what was he to do? All the combat and survival skills he had trained so hard to master were no longer needed. He felt purposeless now. It was ironic, but the more he thought about it, the more he felt that his only future lay in the past. Chapter 2, Prequel Chapter 2 Meeting with Dr. Pura. Dr. Pura, Ashika and the director of Hateno Ancient Tech Lab, lived atop a hill overlooking Hateno village. Her experiments with an anti-aging rune had succeeded beyond expectations. She now appeared as an 8-year-old girl, despite being over 120 years old. Pura and Ravi, the Akula Ancient Tech Lab's director, were renowned experts on ancient Sheikah technology. Both had tended to Link at the Shrine of Resurrection over a century ago. As the rain ceased, Link strolled through Hateno village en route to his meeting with Pura. He stopped at Hylia's statue to offer a prayer, seeking success for his venture and solace for Zelda and his fallen friends. He then continued up the hill.
Link felt anxious about the meeting.
Pyrrha was known for her brusque demeanor and impatience. She preferred to devote her time to research rather than entertain interruptions. Furthermore, he worried that his ideas might be rejected.
Link's deepest desire was to reunite with Mipha, even if it meant journeying back in time.
If possible, he hoped to save the four champions, defeat Calamity Ganon, and ensure that Princess Zelda's original plan succeeded in that timeline. He would warn the champions about their divine beast's corruption and help Zelda awaken her sealing power on time.
With the advantage of hindsight, they could anticipate Ganon's attack and better prepare.
But if, for some reason, these goals proved unattainable, he would be content to return to the past, marry Mipha, and live the life they both desired for as long as fate allowed them. He was no scientist and didn't understand how the Temple of Time could be made to work. And even if it was possible to do as he wished, he was unsure he would be allowed to do it. Although stories told of previous heroes using the Temple of Time to travel back and save Hyrule, those journeys were not undertaken for personal reasons. Nevertheless, Link's plan did provide a chance to save another Hyrule timeline.
Ultimately, he would need Queen Zelda's approval, though.
Arriving at the lab, Link knocked and was invited inside.
Link, punctual as ever. Pyrrha exclaimed. Please, have a seat.
The room was cluttered with papers and books, and it wasn't clear where to sit.
Simon noticed Link's confusion.
Let me clear some space, Simon offered, making room for Link. This mess is evidence of our hard work.
In fact, but I should let Dr. Pyrrha explain.
Yes, Pyrrha interjected. Robbie and I have been working on a way to protect Guardians from external control like Ganon's. Robbie has long regretted not being able to help you and the champions more, which motivated him to create ancient weapons and armor. Together, we've discussed how we could have averted the catastrophe that unfolded. I believe our new defense system will be effective. While we can't test it against Ganon directly, we can simulate a strong attack on the Guardian's control mechanism, and our defense repels those efforts.
I'm very optimistic about this breakthrough.
Dr. Pyrrha, I don't think Link is here to discuss Guardian defenses, Simon interjected.
No, you're right, Pyrrha conceded. But your arrival coincided with a good stopping point. What did you want to discuss? Link cleared his throat and outlined his thoughts.
Dr. Pyrrha, there are ancient tales of legendary heroes using the Temple of Time to visit the past and thwart Ganon's schemes.
I wonder if I could do the same.
By going back in time, I could alert the champions and aid Zelda in harnessing her power.
Together, we could destroy Ganon and prevent Hyrule's devastation.
It seems worth considering.
I see, Pyrrha replied. It's a fascinating idea. However, tampering with time is extremely risky, Link.
Unintended consequences are always a concern, and though your intentions may be noble, the results may not be universally beneficial.
You'll have to accept that.
Link listened intently as Pyrrha paused. Despite the challenges, your idea is intriguing. The primary obstacle is activating the Temple of Time's time travel function. Even if we succeeded, the legends suggest that only select individuals could traverse time, with the Master Sword playing a crucial role.
Additionally, controlling the temporal distance could prove problematic.
In one story, the hero could only travel 7 years into the past or future.
In another, the hero's journey through time was unpredictable.
Even if we restored the temple's capabilities, there's no guarantee you'd arrive precisely 102 years in the past to alter the course of events.
Furthermore, is it not possible that your plan would fail, leaving Hyrule in an even worse state? It's a possibility, Link admitted. But with my current memories intact, I could warn everyone about Ganon's plan.
The champions wouldn't be caught off guard in their divine beasts, Zelda would know how to invoke her sealing power, and your recent discovery might protect the Guardians from Ganon's control.
Could your safeguard also work on the divine beasts?
We haven't tested it on them, but we believe it should work.
However,
if we intend to rely on it to save Hyrule, we must be certain of its effectiveness, Pyrrha said.
Testing it fully will be difficult, Simon added.
We can't simply resurrect Ganon and politely request that he attempt to take over the Guardians and divine beasts to gauge our defenses.
Link paused to consider their words. Understood. But how could things worsen if I were to go back in time? Even if we lost control of the divine beasts, the champions would be alive, and we could reclaim them more easily than when I had to do it alone. And think of the lives and destruction we could prevent across Hyrule. Pyrrha pondered Link's proposal. It's an enticing idea. I'll discuss it with Robbie and see what he thinks. If he agrees that your plan has merit and we can decipher the Temple of Time's secrets, we can present our case to Queen Zelda for approval. She may have her own reservations. Our research should initially focus on timeshift stones, which were used by the Sheikah to manipulate local time travel. Is there anything else? Pyrrha inquired. No, that's all. Thank you for meeting with me, Link replied. He left the lab and returned to Hadino village, feeling satisfied with the meeting's outcome. Now he could enjoy a peaceful lunch in the village. Chapter 3, Prequel Chapter 3, Sheikah Technology. Link stirred from his slumber in his quaint Hadino village home as dawn broke. The gentle symphony of birdsong filtered through the slightly ajar window, bidding him to rise. He yawned deeply, stretching his limbs to release the lingering traces of sleep, before rolling out of bed and shuffling towards the kitchen to prepare his morning meal. Whisking the last of his eggs in a bowl, Link murmured, "Guess I need to restock," as he poured the mixture into the sizzling pan. The aroma of the cooking omelette wafted through the air, awakening his senses. When dining alone, which was his usual routine, Link found solace in revisiting the pages of his leather-bound journal. As he flipped through pages, he realized that about a year had passed since his encounter with Dr. Pyrrha, the meeting at which he presented his proposal. Despite the passage of time, he had yet to hear from the reclusive scientist, which filled him with growing concern. On his visits to Hyrule Castle, Zelda had the tact and consideration not to ask him if he had heard anything. She knew how much this meant to him. But Mipha, who seemed to know a good deal about what her sister was up to, would often deliberately bring it up. It was clear she wanted him to move on. "I gather my sister has nothing to report," Mipha would say to Link over tea or lunch at her dwelling. "Maybe you should consider the possibility that she will never succeed and move on with your life?" "Maybe, but I'd like to give her a bit more time," Link would answer. And if asked how much more time, he would just shake his head. Of course, he didn't know. On some occasions, he grew so frustrated that he contemplated surprising Pyrrha with a visit to her laboratory, but two factors stayed his hand. Pyrrha is notorious disdain for interruptions during her research and the flickering hope that she was on the verge of a breakthrough, a hope he feared might be dashed upon his arrival. Upon finishing his meal, Link tidied his modest house before venturing into the bustling village center. His first stop was the East Wind General Store to replenish his egg supply. "Hello," chimed Ivy, the diligent young woman perpetually sweeping the store's entrance. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" Link offered her a warm smile, replying, "Morning, Ivy." "It certainly is. Don't worry yourself out, now." He couldn't help but wonder what else occupied Ivy's days, as she seemed to be always sweeping whenever he visited. Shaking off his curiosity, he stepped inside and greeted her father, Pruce, the store's proprietor. In contrast to his perceptive daughter, Pruce often appeared oblivious to a customer's arrival until confronted. With a fresh carton of eggs in hand, Link paid, bid farewell, and retreated to his home. But after puttering around the house a bit, the confines of his dwelling began to feel suffocating. Link decided another visit to Zora's domain was in order. After ensuring his horse was fed and watered, he hoisted himself into the saddle and set off. Link and his horse had traversed the route to Zora's domain countless times. She seemed to instinctively know the way, allowing Link to surrender the reins and simply savor the beauty of the surrounding countryside as they trotted along at a leisurely pace. He passed the decaying remnants of a Lizalfo's camp that used to be filled with electric arrow-wielding archers. He hated them, as they could cause serious injury or death to vulnerable Zoras. And he could recall sniping each of them with ice arrows, happy to be rid of them, until the Gainon's next cursed blood moon revived them all. Thank Hylia, they were gone for good now. When he arrived at the Great Zora Bridge, Link freed his horse to graze and then made his way into the surrounding hills. He was careful to avoid the Zora guards for now,
as he had learned they would report his presence and assign someone to accompany him. He didn't necessarily mind the company but felt it was an unnecessary intrusion on their time. And sometimes, he wanted to be alone, hopefully encouraging a flashback. He spent the rest of the day wandering about, praying something he noticed would trigger his memory. But as was usually the case, nothing happened. So, following a fruitless day of exploration, Link resolved to return to the domain for a hearty meal and a rejuvenating night's rest at the Seabed Inn. Before heading to the inn, he made his way to the bustling coral reef market to acquire some fresh fish. By now, he was well known there, and some familiar faces in the market greeted him with warm smiles.
"Ah, Link, good evening," beamed Clef, the shopkeeper.
"As always, we have an extraordinary selection of the freshest fish for your enjoyment." Link laughed softly and replied, "You don't have to coax me, I never doubt the quality of your catch, Clef. I'll take a sizzle-fin trout and a portion of Hylian rice, please." Exchanging the items for 36 rupees, Clef wished him a pleasant meal. With his provisions in hand, Link ambled over to a nearby cooking spot close to the inn. As he busied himself with meal preparations, Koda approached him. "Hi Linny, are you planning to stay at the inn tonight?" she inquired.
"There's a message waiting for you with no return address. Let me fetch it for you." As Link finished cooking, Koda returned with the missive in hand. Link carried his steaming meal and the mysterious message to a secluded alcove overlooking the plaza, where he could dine in peace. Eager to uncover the contents of the letter, he opened the envelope as he savored his food. To his surprise, it was correspondence from Dr. Pura.
"Link, I'm directing this message to Zora's domain, as I surmise you frequent the area these days.
I have some news that I'm certain will bring you joy. However, fearing potential espionage, I'm reluctant to commit the details to paper.
Please make haste to return to our lab at your earliest convenience.
Dr. Pura. Director, Hatino Ancient Tech Lab." A swell of anticipation surged within Link. The message could only mean Pura had made progress on his proposal. Yet he knew it was too late, and he was far too weary to embark on the journey back to Hatino village at that moment. Finishing his meal, he offered a prayer at Goddess Hylia's statue for Zelda, his lost friends, and the hopeful success of his mission. As Hylia was the goddess of time, the prayer held particular resonance. Then he descended back to the plaza. Bathed in the soft glow of moonlight, Prince Sidon stood before Mipha's statue, immersed in contemplation. Each night, Sidon visited this sacred spot to reflect on the sister he cherished and longed for. Link understood the depth of their bond, often engaging in heartfelt conversations with Sidon. However, he chose not to intrude upon Sidon's meditative moment tonight. Adhering to his own ritual, Link carefully placed a blue nightshade flower at the base of Mipha's statue. "Good night, Mipha," he whispered softly. "You know I love you, and I miss you." After allowing himself a few more minutes to gaze upon the statue, Link retreated to the inn. With Dr. Pura's tantalizing news fresh in his mind, he indulged in an 80-rupee waterbed and soon succumbed to slumber. The journey back to Hatino village was uneventful, and he was warmly welcomed upon arriving at the tech lab. Dr. Pura eagerly shared her groundbreaking discovery. "Link, we have made astonishing strides in understanding Sheikah technology. While we have yet to unlock the secrets of the Temple of Time, we have successfully fashioned a pair of highly refined timeshift stones. Furthermore, we can now control the extent of the temporal shift with remarkable precision, thanks to the Sheikah slate. As you may know from your own reading, a timeshift stone can transport an area surrounding it through time. Strike the stone once to journey into the past, and strike it again to return to the present. We've conducted tests, but I must emphasize the need for caution. Should you utilize the stone to traverse time, the consequences of your actions will manifest in the present upon your return, at least within the area governed by the stone's influence," Dr. Pura explained excitedly. Link's eyes widened with amazement. "This is truly a monumental breakthrough," he exclaimed. "When can I make use of one of these stones?" Before enlightening you on our accomplishments, we sought counsel from Her Majesty Queen Zelda. She graciously consented to allow you the use of one of the stones on the condition that you pledge to wield its power responsibly and prudently.
Furthermore, she conveyed her thoughts regarding your intentions, Pyrrha divulged, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. I aim to employ it in Zora's domain, Link explained.
Queen Zelda had already surmised that and shared it with us, so allow me to lay out some fundamental restrictions. She mentioned your likely desire to converse with the late Zora champion, Mipha.
It is of utmost importance that you select a moment and location in which you are not already present, as any interaction with your past self could precipitate unforeseeable and potentially disastrous repercussions. Should you inadvertently find yourself in proximity to your past self, make haste in returning to the present.
Do you grasp the gravity of this stipulation?
Yes, I comprehend its importance, Link assured her, his expression solemn. Undeterred, Pyrrha pressed on. Moreover, you must orchestrate the meeting in an isolated setting, devoid of other individuals or any likelihood of intrusion within the timeshift stone's sphere of influence. It is crucial to minimize contact with others and avoid any meddling with the delicate fabric of the timeline. I believe I have just the location in mind, Link responded thoughtfully. In bygone days, Vah Ruta was nestled in the heart of East Reservoir Lake, a place where Mipha frequently honed her skills in solitude.
However, I wish to consult my journal before finalizing the precise time shift.
In his quest to reclaim his memories, Link meticulously documented information gleaned from diaries, historical records, and dialogues with the Zoras in a leather-bound journal. While verbal exchanges offered invaluable insights, written accounts proved more trustworthy, as even the most lucid memories could not accurately recount day-by-day minutiae from over 100 years prior. Pyrrha continued, her voice tinged with caution. An additional directive that may prove more difficult to uphold is that you must refrain from divulging any details pertaining to someone's future.
Our understanding of time travel remains in its infancy.
Should you, for example, forewarn Mipha of her impending doom, the consequences could spiral out of control, endangering both of you and the world at large. You may even inadvertently seal your own fate in an unforeseen tragedy.
We must first deepen our comprehension of the ramifications before we tamper with the intricate web of our timeline.
Link nodded in comprehension and acquiescence.
Lastly, Pyrrha intoned, exercise vigilance in remaining within the area influenced by the stone. Straying beyond its boundaries would result in your abrupt disappearance from the past and an unceremonious return to the present.
I shall heed your warning and stay within the timeshift stone's purview, Link affirmed.
Very well, Pyrrha conceded.
We have only fashioned 2 such stones. Once you have determined the necessary timeshift, I shall configure a stone using the enigmatic Sheikah slate.
Link took his leave to consult his notes at his dwelling.
He needed to pinpoint a moment when he could be confident that Mipha would be practicing her skills in solitude at Vah Ruta and that he would be absent. Such a juncture would have transpired shortly before Ganon's ominous resurgence. After poring over the available data, he returned to the laboratory. I have deduced that exactly 8 days prior to the Great Calamity would be the most opportune moment, Link declared. I am certain that Mipha was engrossed in her training regimen during that period, and I am fairly confident that she would be honing her skills alone at Vah Ruta. Furthermore, I can attest to my own absence from the vicinity at that time. Pyrrha, her movements deliberate and precise, reached across her cluttered desk to unveil a mesmerizing bluish stone, intricately engraved with a Sheikah emblem. Utilizing the Sheikah slate, she input a series of commands. The stone briefly flashed an ethereal white before settling into a gentle, pulsating blue glow. She carefully handed the stone to Link.
Thank you, Pyrrha and Simon. Words cannot express the depth of my gratitude.
Wish me luck, Link voiced, his eyes glistening with determination and hope. With that, he strode purposefully out of the laboratory, cradling the invaluable stone securely in his grasp, its soft glow a testament to the possibilities that lay ahead and the chance to reconnect with a cherished friend.
Chapter 4, Prequel Chapter 4, Mipha. Driven by anticipation, the trip back to Zora's domain felt like an eternity.
Link restrained himself from hurrying to the brink of fatigue. He opted for a less frequented path from Hadino village through Nervada Lake, Lanera Bay, the Rut Ala River, and up the Rut Ala Dam to East Reservoir Lake.
Passing the vicinity of Purifier Lake, Link glanced westward and discerned the east gate of Lanero Road. He hadn't returned there in ages, deliberately avoiding it during his travels. It was the final place he had seen Mipha alive. Preoccupied with Zelda that day, ascending and descending Mount Lanayru, he missed the chance to converse with Mipha before the battle ensued. He pressed on towards Lanayru Bay. Upon reaching East Reservoir Lake, Link headed for the Northwest Pier, which provided some cover and would be the natural location for an unexpected visit. The lake and reservoir were tranquil now, with Ruta relocated to a mountain peak and no one else in sight. Concealing the timeshift stone behind some pots near the pier's edge, Link hoped his sudden emergence would go unnoticed. He needed to feign this was just an unanticipated visit. Aware that he was nearly 3 years older than he should be at this point in time, Link hoped Mipha would either not notice or attribute it to the stress of protecting Zelda. He also had the presence of mind not to wear his Zora armor since he had not yet acquired it at that point. Instead, he donned his champion's tunic, which he typically wore back then. He speculated whether the timeshift stone's influence would extend to Ruta on the lake, worrying that it might be impossible to attract Mipha's attention otherwise. Well, he would worry about that if it happened. Taking a deep breath, he offered a brief prayer to Hylia and activated the stone. The transformation was immediate. The surroundings morphed, with the sun shining brightly in the clear sky. Mipha could be spotted atop Ruta's trunk in the distance. The timeshift stone had worked perfectly, and Link had indeed traveled over a century into the past. As he moved away from the stone and towards the pier's center, he found he couldn't control his emotions. Tears welled up in his eyes. Initially, Mipha faced the opposite direction, but soon she caught sight of Link on the pier. She called out in waves before lowering Ruta's trunk, diving elegantly into the water, and swimming his way. Leaping gracefully from the water, she landed on her feet, rushed towards him, and extended her arms for an embrace. He reciprocated hesitantly, and she stepped back. "Your greeting wasn't the warmest, sweetheart, but this surprise visit is wonderful." Mipha laughed. "I didn't expect to see you for another week since you were occupied guarding the princess. It seems you couldn't resist being together after last week, and I'm so glad." Link realized he should have mentally and emotionally prepared himself better for this encounter. For Mipha, it was an unforeseen visit from someone she was used to seeing. But for him, it was the realization of a 3-year dream he had prayed for but never thought possible. As a result, he had been overly eager to reunite with her, neglecting to brace himself for the moment. Mipha's surprise intensified when Link failed to react to her comment about the previous week. He wasn't behaving as she had anticipated, and she couldn't pinpoint the reason. Her concern grew as she noticed the tears in his eyes. "Link, is everything all right?" "Why the tears?" "Are you injured?" inquired Mipha. No, I'm all right, Mipha," Link replied, hastily wiping his eyes. "It's just that I've missed you. I've missed you deeply." Seeing her in person surpassed his recollection, and the old, faded portrait on his wall failed to capture her true beauty. Her soft amber eyes, smooth red skin, and tender expression were captivating, igniting a yearning he hadn't felt in years. Overwhelmed by 3 years of solitude and increasingly vivid memories of her, he struggled to maintain his composure. "Something is amiss," Mipha declared, shaking her head. "It warms my heart to know you've missed me, but you've never behaved this way. Has Princess Zelda done something to upset you? And why aren't you with her?" "No, Zelda is well, as am I. I can't explain why I'm so emotional right now," Link confessed. "But I need you to understand how deeply I love you and long to be with you." Mipha gazed at him, and he found it challenging to meet her eyes. "I can sense you're withholding something," Mipha said with a shake of her head. "I know you too well, Link. But I won't pry. I'm too overjoyed to see you. And rest assured, my love for you is just as strong. Would you mind postponing your training work with Ruta so we can spend the day together? I'll need to leave once you return home. And, if it's alright, we should remain near the reservoir," Link proposed. "Of course not. But don't you think it's high time you kissed me, darling? Or have you forgotten how in only a week?" Mipha teased. Mipha reached out, and they embraced, sharing a series of tender kisses that sent thrills through his body.
It had been over a century since he last kissed anyone, but some things one never forgets how to do.
I suppose we could pause for lunch, Mipha suggested finally. I have some fish you can cook here.
I didn't anticipate company, and given your appetite, there might not be enough.
Should I catch more?
No, whatever you have will suffice.
I've also brought some food we can share, Link reassured her.
Link prepared his fish, and they enjoyed lunch together.
Speaking of the princess, how are your nightly responsibilities? Are things better between you and Zelda? Mipha inquired. Link recalled his days with Zelda, saying, "We're doing well, much improved since the beginning. Zelda can be challenging at times.
She's frustrated by her inability to master the Sheikah Slate to unlock shrines and disheartened by her inaccessible sealing power. But I fulfill my duty and remain by her side when needed. She's in capable hands today, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to be with you." Mipha leaned in and kissed him before playfully nipping at his shoulder.
Ouch! Link exclaimed.
Just a little memento, so you will think of me when you return to your Hylian princess, Mipha teased.
And I won't be healing that, either.
She snuggled against him once more.
You seem quite different from the last time we met.
I know you love me, you eventually confessed it, but you were always restrained and unemotional.
I'm thrilled that you're more open with your feelings now. Is it because we're engaged? I can't really explain it, Link admitted. But I'm overjoyed to be with you today. Well, let's relish the afternoon. You mentioned we need to stay close to the reservoir, but I assume swimming is allowed?
Let's swim out to Ruta, Mipha suggested.
Sure. Just not beyond it.
That sounds lovely, Link agreed. He noticed that the timeshift stone's range encompassed all of Ruta since it was absent from the lake in his current time. Hand in hand, they approached the water's edge. Link removed his tunic and trousers, and Mipha playfully shoved him into the water. He recalled fondly how much he enjoyed swimming with her, although his swimming skills were meager compared to those of the Zoras. She delighted in circling him effortlessly as he struggled to swim forward.
Swimming is good exercise for you, dearest, said Mipha. And if you're marrying a Zora, you should expect to spend time in the water.
I guess I can put up with that to be with a Zora, Link teased and laughed. They swam a bit further, but being in the water with the person you love tended to stimulate a Zora's desire and affection. Before they reached Ruta, Mipha swam over to him and embraced him as they floated together. He wrapped his arms around her, and she gazed into his eyes with a smile.
Are you feeling better, happier now? Mipha asked. I know I am.
Ecstatic beyond words, he replied.
When you look at me like this and smile, you're so stunning and beautiful. I love you deeply. I want to spend every moment with you. We will always be together, sweetheart, and my heart will forever be yours, Mipha declared.
They shared another tender kiss. Water truly invigorates me, Mipha laughed.
But I'm aware of your preference for land. Let's finish swimming out to Ruta.
Upon reaching Ruta, they entered and climbed onto its trunk. Mipha then elevated the trunk high above the lake, revealing a breathtaking view of the early afternoon sun glistening off the icy blue cliffs. They sat side by side, arms wrapped around each other, absorbing the stunning scenery. Link was mindful not to inadvertently say anything that might not fit the time period, so he remained mostly silent. Mipha, too, was content with the quiet companionship, occasionally sharing a smile or a kiss.
Her smile was truly radiant. But before long, the day began to wane.
There's a bed near the pier on the shore.
Would you like to spend the night here?
Or are you too anxious to return to your Hylian princess? She playfully teased, smiling.
You know very well that nothing would delight me more than staying here with you, Link confessed. I wish I could remain here forever. Father won't be concerned about me.
I informed him I'd be staying overnight here with Ruta, Mipha revealed. Together, they swam back to the reservoir's edge, with Mipha helping by pulling him along.
Link rekindled a fire and cooked the remaining food for a light dinner.
They then sat side by side at the pier's edge, their legs dangling in the water, holding hands and gazing at the stars above.
It's beautiful here, Link remarked. I adore coming to the domain.
It's lively, spirited, and yet peaceful simultaneously. Even though I'm a Hylian, I feel so at ease and at home here. I hope soon this will be your true home, my love, Mipha said as she squeezed his hand.
Our home. I'm confident you'll be content here. Both of us will.
I'll be happy wherever you are, my love, Link replied.
And I can't find happiness anywhere else.
He leaned over and kissed her. She smiled, the enchanting smile he adored so much.
You've become such a romantic. Mipha chuckled. I never knew you had it in you.
Even after knowing you for an extended period, you still surprised me. But it's a delightful surprise.
I've yearned to hear you say you loved me. You can never say it too often.
I do love you, Link admitted, and have come to realize just how deeply I love you.
It simply took me longer than it should have. They enjoyed a few more minutes of silence but were both growing weary.
I wish you could sleep in the water, Mipha mused.
It's so much more comfortable. Water is calming, and you float so serenely.
I'll try to learn, Link laughed. I'm sure I can figure out how to rest with my head above water.
You know I'll do anything to make you happy. Shall I attempt it tonight?
No, sweetheart, Mipha laughed.
After we're married, there will be plenty of time. I can endure sleeping on land tonight. I want to hold you, feel you in my arms. That's more important to me right now.
They walked to the bed, nestled in each other's arms, shared a kiss, and promptly fell asleep. They awoke to another sunlit morning.
It seems like another splendid day, Mipha observed, caressing Link's hair. You slept well. I think you're becoming accustomed to being my fiancé. Comfortable isn't the term I'd use, Link laughed. More ecstatic and overjoyed. How about a brief swim to start the day? Mipha suggested.
They swam around the lake for a while, then returned to the pier.
Link dried off and dressed. Mipha then approached and embraced him. I do need to head home now. I assume you can't accompany me? Mipha asked.
No, regrettably, Link replied.
The timeshift stone wouldn't extend that far, and Pyrrha had instructed him to avoid unnecessary interactions with others. Well, thank you and Her Royal Highness for this unexpected and enigmatic visit. But for now, take care, and I'll see you at Lanero Road in a week. By the way, where are you heading now? Mipha inquired.
And now, as he bid farewell, he struggled to hold himself together.
Who knew if he would ever see Mipha again? Would Pyrrha ever get the Temple of Time to work? And even if she did, would he be allowed to use it?
He longed to tell Mipha what was going to happen and spare her the pain and suffering of dying in Ruta. But Pyrrha had cautioned him against tampering with events like that, as outcomes were too unpredictable.
Things could turn out worse.
She could be killed in battle some other way, and so could he. And he had promised not to tell her. He needed to keep his word and trust in Pyrrha. How could he expect the goddess of time, Hylia, to hear his prayers if he was false to his word?
I need to travel back to Hadino village first. I'll be fine. I love you, Link declared.
With that, they shared one last kiss.
I love you too, Mipha responded.
She waved once to him on her way back home, then as he watched her recede, she suddenly vanished from view. She had reached the limit of the timeshift stone, which meant nothing to her in the past but removed her time from his sight.
Link paused and took a deep breath. A part of him, no doubt his heart, wanted to stay there.
Perhaps he could carry the timeshift stone in his satchel and be with her again. Her kiss was so sweet. But his head told him that would never work and could ruin everything. So, he returned to the timeshift stone, ensured no one was nearby, struck it once, and with a flash, everything reverted to his present. It was late in the day, however, so he decided to stay in Zora's domain and spend the night at the inn. He felt more joy than he had in years, and his life had a purpose once again. He stopped by the Hylia shrine and thanked the goddess in his prayers for allowing him time with Mipha once again. He just hoped his past self wouldn't mess things up as he rubbed some tender teeth marks on his shoulder. And then he realized he had forgotten to ask what her favorite flower was. He always left a blue nightshade flower beneath her statue whenever he visited Zora's domain, but wondered if it was the flower she liked best. He had asked Sidon and her father about it, but they didn't know. Sidon had been too young when he lost her, and her father had likely forgotten after all these years if he ever knew. Oh, well.